Picture this. You've got a guy, let's call him Dave. Dave owns 3 laundromats, nothing sexy, cash flowing about $180,000 a year combined. And every financial advisor Dave has ever talked to has told him the same thing. Great, reinvest in more laundromats, maybe diversify into an index fund on the side. Here's the thing, though, that advice is exactly why Dave will never be worth more than a few $1,000,000. Meanwhile, there's a version of Dave, in a parallel universe, who took those same 3 laundromats and used them as the foundation stone of something that eventually gets valued at $500 million. Same starting cash flow, same city, completely different trajectory. The difference isn't luck, it's structure. And that's what we're breaking down today. My name is Weston, and I spend way too much time thinking about how boring businesses turn into empires. If you're someone who's sitting on a profitable business or a decent chunk of savings, and you feel like you're stuck on a treadmill, working hard, making good money, but somehow never actually building wealth that compounds without you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Okay, so here's what most people don't realize about how holding companies actually get built. You've been taught that you need one massive idea, the next Facebook, the next Tesla, to build serious wealth. Look, that's the lottery ticket version of wealth building, and it's actually the least reliable one. According to a 2023 study referenced by the Kauffman Foundation, roughly 1 in 10,000 venture-backed startups ever reach a billion-dollar valuation. 1 in 10,000. But you know what has much, much better odds? Buying boring, profitable, cash-flowing businesses and stacking them under one roof using leverage and reinvestment. That's literally the Berkshire Hathaway model. Warren Buffett didn't invent one incredible product. He bought an unglamorous textile company and then used its cash flow, badly, at first he'll admit that, to acquire insurance companies, which gave him access to float, which is basically other people's money he could invest for free. That's not a genius insight. That's just structure. Let's actually build this thing from zero. Stay with me on the math here because this is where it gets really interesting. Year zero, you've got $0 and you buy your first small business using seller financing, meaning the previous owner takes payments over time instead of a lump sum. Let's say it's a home services business doing $150,000 a year in owner earnings, purchased for 3 times earnings, so $450,000 with 10% down and the seller financing the rest at 8% interest over 7 years. You put down $45,000, maybe your own savings, maybe a small SBA loan. That business is now cash flowing $150,000 a year. After debt service of roughly $70,000 a year, you're pocketing $80,000 in year 1. Now here's the psychological shift most people miss. You don't spend that $80,000. You don't even really think of it as your money yet. You think of it as ammunition. Now you might be thinking, okay, Weston, that's cute. But going from one home services business to $500 million is an insane leap. That's not realistic. And you're right to be skeptical. But here's what changes everything. Compounding acquisitions work exponentially, not linearly, because each business you acquire increases your borrowing capacity for the next one. Banks don't just look at your personal net worth, they look at your holding company's consolidated cash flow. So business number 2 doesn't require you to save up again. It requires the balance sheet of business number 1. So let's fast forward. By year 3, using that same playbook, buy cash-flowing businesses at 3 to 4 times earnings, use a mix of seller financing and SBA debt, funnel all distributable cash back into acquisitions. You're not managing one business anymore. You've got 5. Combined, they're throwing off $1.2 million a year in free cash flow. Here's what most people don't realize about this stage. Your actual job has completely changed. You are no longer an operator. You are an allocator of capital. This is the exact psychological transition that trips people up, because most business owners have their identity wrapped up in being the smartest person in the room operationally. But Dave from earlier, the one who builds the empire, Dave lets go of that. He hires operators. He becomes the guy who decides where the next dollar goes. Okay, here's the part that actually explains how you get to $500 million, and it's not just cash flow stacking. It's something called multiple arbitrage. Small businesses, the ones under $1 million in profit, typically sell for 3 to 5 times earnings because they're risky, owner-dependent, and illiquid. But once you combine 10 or 15 of them under one holding company with professional management, diversified revenue, and consistent audited financials, that combined entity doesn't trade at 4 times anymore. Institutional buyers, private equity funds, strategic acquirers will pay 8, 10, sometimes 12 times earnings for a platform business with scale and recurring revenue. Let's put real numbers on that, because this is genuinely the craziest part of the whole model. Say your holding company acquires 15 businesses over 10 years, each averaged in at 4 times earnings, and together they're generating $40 million a year in consolidated EBITDA. If you sold each business individually, you might get $160 million total. But because you built a platform, one company with $40 million in earnings, professional management, diversified risk, a strategic buyer or PE fund values that at 10 to 12 times earnings. $40 million times 10 is $400 million. Times 12, it's $480 million. You didn't create new value out of thin air. You created it by restructuring risk and scale, which the market pays an enormous premium for. That premium, the difference between $160 million and $480 million, that's the multiple arbitrage. That's the entire game. So how do you actually start this, practically, this year? 4 steps. Step 1. Identify boring, recession-resistant industries with fragmented ownership. HVAC, plumbing, laundromats, pest control, dental practices. Fragmented means no single company controls more than a tiny slice of the market, which means there's tons of small acquisition targets. Step 2. Learn seller financing and SBA 7A loans before you learn anything else. This is the actual unlock. Most people never build a holding company because they think they need millions in cash. You don't. You need the ability to structure a deal. Step 3. Buy your first business, run it disciplined for 18 to 24 months, and reinvest 100% of distributable cash flow into acquisition number 2. Resist the lifestyle creep. This is the hardest psychological part. Step 4. Once you hit 3 to 5 businesses and $1 to $2 million in consolidated cash flow, start professionalizing. Get real financials, hire a controller, bring in operating partners. This is what transforms you from guy who owns some businesses into platform. And platforms are what get the 10 times multiples. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is easy, because it's not. It takes 10, 15 years of disciplined reinvestment and a willingness to delay gratification most people simply don't have. But the math is real. The model is proven. It's literally how Berkshire Hathaway, Constellation Software, and dozens of lower-profile holding companies were built. The gap between Dave, who owns 3 laundromats forever, and Dave, who builds a $500 million platform, isn't intelligence, and it isn't luck. It's understanding that structure compounds and operators don't. If this broke down something you've been curious about, subscribe, drop a like, and let me know in the comments what industry you'd start rolling up first. I read every single one.